They mocked me as the nobody at the will reading until I inherited the $500 0 cents empire. Their faces drained of color, the room erupted in chaos, and a deadly secret sparked a hunt for my life. I woke to the sound of glass exploding. A single gunshot tore through my Brooklyn apartment window, the bullet burying itself in the wall inches above my head. Shards rained down on my thrift store rug, glinting like jagged stars in the dawn light. My heart slammed against my ribs as I dove to the floor. My laptop, my lifeline to the world of freelance journalism, clattering off the desk. The air smelled of gunpowder and fear, and a note tied to a brick lay among the debris. Drop the inheritance, or you're next. I'm Emily Carter, 30 years old, and until that moment, I thought the worst thing I'd ever face was my family's disdain. For 3 decades, I've been the outcast of the Wentworth dynasty, a Wall Street empire built on ruthless ambition and cold cash. My parents, Victoria and Charles Wentworth, and my siblings, Olivia and Ethan, never let me forget I was their greatest disappointment. A scrappy journalist chasing truth in a world they measured in stock portfolios and private jet. But that morning, as I crouched behind my couch, pulse racing, I realized something far darker was at play. Someone wanted me dead, and it was tied to the bombshell that had just upended my life. My grandfather, William Bill Wentworth, had left me his entire $500 million 0 cent empire. Every mansion, every share of Wentworth Enterprises, every cent of his fortune, mine. The family's polished world had shattered, and now, it seemed, someone was willing to kill to take it back. Let me rewind. My life wasn't always dodging bullets in a 5th floor walk-up. Growing up in the shadow of the Wentworth name was like living in a gilded cage I was never allowed to touch. My parents owned a penthouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side, a sprawling monument to their wealth, with marble floors and chandeliers that cost more than my annual rent. My mother, Victoria, was the queen of high society, her blonde hair always perfectly coiffed, her smile as sharp as a blade. My father, Charles, was the stoic patriarch, his tailored suits and silver hair screaming old money. Olivia, 7 years my senior, was their pride and joy, a Stanford MBA with a knack for closing deals and a husband, James, who ran a hedge fund like it was a blood sport. Ethan, 3 years younger than me, was the charming rebel, crashing sports cars and cutting shady deals, yet somehow always forgiven because he could talk stocks like a pro. And me, I was the nobody, the misfit, who chose ink-stained fingers and late-night deadlines over boardrooms and champagne. I still remember my 15th birthday, the sting of it as fresh as yesterday. I'd saved up for a second-hand laptop to write my first investigative piece, a story about food insecurity in Brooklyn public schools. I was so proud, my teenage heart buzzing with purpose. But at the family's annual Christmas gala, surrounded by crystal flutes and caviar, Victoria glanced at my laptop and sighed. Emily, darling, when will you outgrow this writing phase? Olivia was interning at Goldman Sachs at your age, mapping out her future. Her words landed like a slap, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently on her wine glass. Olivia, standing nearby in a designer gown, smirked, her blonde hair catching the light like a halo. It's cute, Em, but it's not a career. Ethan, barely 12, chimed in. Yeah, who reads newspapers anymore? The room laughed, and I shrank into myself, clutching my laptop like a shield. That was my life, a constant barrage of comparisons, each one reminding me I'd never measure up. Olivia was the golden child, destined to inherit the empire. Ethan, despite his recklessness, 3 wrecked Ferraris before he was 21, a hushed-up insider trading scandal, was the son who could do no wrong. Charles would beam. Ethan's got the Wentworth instinct for business, as if I were invisible. But there was one person who saw me, who always saw me, Grandpa Bill. While the family jetted off to the Hamptons or Aspen, he'd show up at my tiny apartment, his weathered hands flipping through my latest article drafts. "You've got a fire in you, Em," he'd say, his blue eyes twinkling with a mischief that belied his 80 years. "You see truth where others see dollar signs." 3 months before he died, we met at a hole-in-the-wall coffee shop in Brooklyn. I was working on an exposé about a corporate fraud scheme, my table littered with notes and empty coffee cups. Bill slid into the booth across from me, his tweed jacket out of place among the hipsters. "Your work matters, Em," he said, his voice low but firm. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." I brushed it off, uncomfortable with praise, my cheeks flushing. "It's just a story, Grandpa. It won't change the world." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Don't be so sure. Truth has a way of shaking things up." I didn't know then that those words were a prophecy, a hint at the storm he was about to unleash. We talked about my next piece, a dive into labor exploitation at a tech startup. And he listened like it was the most important thing in the world. My family, they'd have scoffed, called it bleeding heart nonsense. Family gatherings were a special kind of hell. The Wentworth's Manhattan penthouse was a stage for their wealth. Every Christmas and Thanksgiving a performance of excess. I'd show up with a handwritten article, maybe a profile on a community organizer or a piece on gentrification, hoping for a shred of approval. But my gifts were set aside, overshadowed by Olivia's diamond earrings or Ethan's private island vouchers. One Christmas, I overheard Victoria whispering to my Aunt Margaret, "Emily's just different. We've tried everything, but she insists on this bohemian lifestyle." The word bohemian dripped with contempt, like I was some kind of disease they couldn't cure. Ethan, half drunk on vintage scotch, laughed. "She's probably writing poetry in a garret somewhere." The room chuckled, and I slipped out to the balcony, staring at the glittering Manhattan skyline, wondering why I kept trying. It built a life I loved, though. My freelance work gave voice to the marginalized. My small circle of friends, Sarah, my childhood confidant, chief among them, valued me for who I was. My Brooklyn apartment, with its peeling paint and thrift store furniture, was my sanctuary. I didn't need the Wentworths' approval to be happy. Or so I thought until that rainy Monday when my phone lit up with Victoria's name. "Emily," she said, her voice clipped and formal. "Your grandfather passed this morning. The funeral's Friday. Wear something respectable. No, how are you?" No acknowledgement that I'd just lost the only person who ever believed in me. I set down my pen, tears blurring the draft on my desk, my exposé on a corrupt city councilman forgotten. I had no idea Bill had set in motion a plan that would turn my world, and theirs, upside down. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived on heavy cream stationery from Sterling and Associates, Bill's attorneys. "Dear Miss Carter," it read, "your presence is requested at the reading of the last will and testament of William Wentworth, to take place at the Wentworth Estate in the Hamptons on Friday, June 20th at 2 p.m. Your attendance is of critical importance." I read it 3 times, my brow furrowing. Why me? I was the family nobody, the one they barely tolerated. Before I could puzzle it out, my phone rang again. Victoria, you got the letter about the will reading? She said without preamble. You need to attend, of course, but it's just a formality. Sterling insists on having everyone present, relevant or not. The pause before relevant was a knife to the gut. I'm planning to come, I said, keeping my voice steady. Wear the gray dress I bought for Olivia's wedding. It's the only thing you own that looks remotely professional. She hung up before I could respond. Her classic power move. As I packed for the Hamptons, memories of Bill flooded back. Not the stiff family events, but the quiet moments no one else knew about. My high school journalism awards junior year, I'd won first place for a piece on homelessness, a topic that would have horrified my parents. I stood nervously by my display, expecting no one, when Bill's voice boomed behind me. This is brilliant, Em. It's raw, real, makes people think. I spun around, shocked. Grandpa, I didn't think anyone was coming. He grinned, clapping my shoulder. Miss my granddaughter's triumph? Not a chance. Then there was my 21st birthday. While Victoria and Charles sent a $50 0 gift card, Bill took me to a diner in Queens, the kind of place my family wouldn't be caught dead in. Over greasy burgers, he sipped his coffee and said, True wealth isn't in your bank account, Em. It's knowing who you are and refusing to apologize for it. I nodded, not fully grasping the weight of his words. Last year, when my expose on a corrupt city official went viral, racking up millions of views, Bill called me, his voice warm with pride. You're changing the game, Em. My parents? They were too busy with a murder to even read it. The sudden interest from my extended family set my journalist's instincts on edge. Aunt Margaret, who hadn't spoken to me in years, called to catch up, her voice syrupy with fake warmth. My cousins, Daniel and Sophia, texted, offering to explain the will reading if I found it confusing. Their messages were too similar, too coordinated. I smelled a rat, but I pushed it down. Maybe Bill's death had made them rethink family tie. Even as I thought it, I knew it was wishful thinking. The morning of the will reading was bright and crisp, a cruel contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I stood before my closet, bypassing the gray dress Victoria demanded. Instead, I chose a black blazer, jeans, and a thrift store scarf with a bold red pattern. A small rebellion, but it felt like armor. The 3-hour drive to the Hamptons gave me too much time to think. I replayed every slight, every holiday dinner where I was seated at the kids' table, even in my 20s, every business discussion that excluded me, every reminder that I wasn't Wentworth enough. The estate loomed ahead, a Georgian mansion sprawled across manicured lawns, its white columns gleaming like a temple to wealth. The driveway was a showroom of excess. Olivia's Bentley, Ethan's Porsche, my parents' twin Range Rovers. My battered Toyota looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. The grand foyer was a buzz of whispers as I entered. Relatives clustered in groups, their conversations halting as they spotted me. Sophia, Daniel's wife, did a double take, her diamond earrings catching the chandelier light. Emily? Didn't expect you here, she said, her smile more grimace than welcome. Charles's voice cut through the hum. I'm surprised you bothered, Emily. This is mainly for the business stakeholders. His bespoke suit screamed authority, but I met his gaze. The letter said my presence was critical. He scoffed, turning to Ethan and James, Olivia's husband, who were deep in talk about stock options. I stood alone, the outsider as always, my scarf suddenly feeling too bright, too loud. The library was a cathedral of wealth, 2 stories of mahogany shelves, leather-bound books no one read, and a stone fireplace that could have housed my entire apartment. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, dust motes dancing like tiny ghosts. My family arranged themselves like royalty. Victoria and Charles in leather armchairs facing the desk, Olivia and James on a velvet sofa, Ethan and Chloe in plush armchairs. Chloe, an influencer with 1 million followers, was already snapping selfies, probably planning a grieving heiress post. I was directed to a hardback chair in the corner, half hidden by a fern. Olivia, in a Chanel suit that cost more than my rent, glanced at me. "Oh, Emily, you could have called if you needed something to wear. I have plenty of designer pieces I've barely touched." Her voice dripped with pity. Ethan smirked. "Let it go, Liv. Not everyone cares about looking the part." He didn't look at me, his attention back on Chloe, who was filming herself pouting at the camera. At precisely 2 p.m., Sterling entered, his salt and pepper hair and measured steps exuding calm authority. "Good afternoon," he said, arranging papers on the desk. "We're here to execute the last will and testament of William Wentworth. My condolences to you all. Bill was a dear friend." A murmur of rehearsed sympathy rippled through the room. Victoria dabbed at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, her performance flawless. Sterling began with the formalities, then moved to the bequests. Victoria received the family art collection, centuries-old paintings worth millions. Charles got Bill's yacht, a floating palace. Olivia and James were gifted a Napa Valley vineyard, Ethan a Miami Beach condo. My cousins and aunts received cash gifts, $100,000, 0 cents here, $250,000, 0 cents there. Small change in Wentworth terms, but enough to keep them loyal. Each announcement was met with nods, but the room's energy shifted, eyes narrowing, waiting for the real prize. Wentworth Enterprises, the Hamptons estate, and the $500 million, 0 cents portfolio. Victoria leaned toward Charles, her whisper carrying, "Why is the nobody even here?" Nervous laughter followed, my face burning. I gripped the arms of my chair, years of practiced restraint keeping my expression neutral. Sterling caught my eye, his look unreadable but steady, and I sat up straighter. He adjusted his glasses. "Now, regarding the primary assets. Wentworth Enterprises, the Hamptons estate, and the consolidated investment portfolio, valued at approximately $500 million, 0 cents. The room went still, even Chloe lowering her phone. "I hereby bequeath to my granddaughter, Emily Carter." The silence was deafening, a vacuum sucking the air from the room. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then hell broke loose. Victoria let out a piercing scream and collapsed, her handkerchief fluttering to the floor. Charles shot to his feet, his chair crashing backward. "This is a fraud, a clerical error." Olivia's mouth opened and closed, her perfect composure shattered. Ethan leapt up, hurling a crystal decanter at the wall, where it exploded into 1,000 glittering shards. "You knows nothing about business. Bill was senile. This isn't legal." The accusations came from every corner, a cacophony of rage and disbelief. I sat, frozen, my mind struggling to process the words. Me? The entire empire? It was impossible. Then came the second shock. A brick smashed through the library window. Glass sprang across the room. It landed at my feet, a note tied to it in blood-red ink. "Drop the inheritance or die." The family barely noticed, too consumed by their outrage, but my blood ran cold. Sterling raised his hands for silence, then rang a brass bell on the desk. its sharp chime cutting through the chaos. "There's more," he said, his voice steady. "Bill anticipated your reaction and recorded a message." He turned to a laptop, and the wall-mount TV flickered to life. Bill's face filled the screen, tired but sharp, his blue eyes piercing, even through the camera. He sat in this very library, his hands folded. "If you're watching this, Emily's inherited my empire, and you're probably losing your minds." A faint smile played on his lips. "For 20 years, I've tested each of you, not on business acumen, but on character. Charles, you fired loyal employees to pad profits. Victoria, you turned away a struggling friend. Olivia, you framed a rival to climb the ladder. Ethan, you bribed officials for contracts. You valued wealth over humanity, status over compassion. You failed." His voice softened. "But Emily, she exposed corruption, helped strangers, never asked for a dime. She's the leader I trust to carry my legacy." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Contests this will, and my records of your indiscretions will go public. Choose wisely." The screen went dark. The room was a powder keg. Victoria, recovering, pointed at me, her voice venomous. "You manipulated him, you scheming little nobody." Charles advanced on Sterling, jabbing a finger into his chest. "Fix this now. Bill wasn't in his right mind." Ethan was on his phone, presumably calling lawyers, while Olivia stared at me, her eyes burning with betrayal. Then the screech of tires outside snapped my head toward the window. A black SUV peeled away, its license plate obscured. My stomach twisted. The brick wasn't a prank. Sterling handed me an envelope, Bill's handwriting scrawled across it. "Emily, this is for you," he said quietly. "Read it in private." As I reached for it, Olivia lunged, grabbing my wrist. "What did you do to him?" she hissed. Sterling stepped between us, guiding me toward a private study off the library. The family's shouts followed, accusations, threats, pleas, like a pack of wolves at my heels. I clutched the envelope, my hands trembling, as Sterling closed the study door. "You're in danger, Emily," he said, his voice low. Bill knew this would stir up trouble, but not this kind. He glanced at the shattered window. "We need to get you out of here." I nodded, my mind racing. The letter felt like a bomb in my hands, its contents a mystery I wasn't ready to face. Outside, I heard Charles yelling about legal recourse and Victoria sobbing theatrically. I slipped out a side door, avoiding the family, and made it to my Toyota. Through the mansion's windows, I saw silhouettes gesticulating wildly, their empire slipping through their fingers. My empire now, apparently. I started the car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. As I pulled onto the highway, a black SUV appeared in my rearview mirror, tailing me too closely. My heart pounded. Whoever threw that brick wasn't done with me yet. That's where I'll pause. My hands still shake thinking about that day, the moment my life became a high-stakes thriller I didn't sign up for. What would you do if you inherited a fortune you never wanted, only to find someone wants you dead for it? Drop your thoughts below, and if this tale of betrayal and danger hooked you, hit that like button and subscribe for the next chapter. The Wentworth legacy is mine now, but at what cost? The black SUV's headlights burned into my rearview mirror, tailing me through the winding Hamptons roads like a predator stalking prey. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my battered Toyota, knuckles white, as I floored the gas, the engine whining in protest. The note from the brick, "Drop the inheritance or die," flashed in my mind. its red ink seeping into my thoughts like blood, had just inherited my grandfather, Bill Wentworth's $500 million 0 cents empire, a fortune I never wanted, and now someone wanted me dead for it. My family's screams still echoed from the will reading: Victoria's collapse, Charles's rage, Olivia's icy silence, Ethan's shattered decanter. They thought I'd stolen their birthright, but I was as shocked as they were. The SUV swerved closer, its bumper kissing mine, and my heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was a hunt. I'm Emily Carter, a 30-year-old freelance journalist who spent her life dodging the Wentworth family's disdain. For 3 decades, I was the nobody, the black sheep who chose truth over wealth, ink over gold. My parents, Victoria and Charles, and my siblings, Olivia and Ethan, built their lives on Wall Street's ruthless ambition, while I chased stories in Brooklyn's crumbling newsrooms. But Bill, the titan of Wentworth Enterprises, saw something in me they never did. His will had turned their world upside down, naming me the heir to his empire. Every mansion, every share, every cent. Now, as I raced through the night, the SUV's engine roaring behind me, I realized the cost of his trust might be my life. I veered onto a narrow side road, tires screeching, praying the dense Hamptons woods would hide me. The SUV followed, relentless, its high beams blinding me in the mirrors. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Sarah, my best friend, probably checking why I hadn't texted after the will reading. I couldn't answer, not now. A sharp curve loomed ahead, and I yanked the wheel, my Toyota fishtailing. The SUV wasn't so lucky. It skidded, its side scraping a tree with a sickening crunch. I didn't wait to see if it stopped. I gunned it, my breath ragged, until the headlights faded into the darkness. I pulled into an overgrown driveway, killed the engine, and sat there, trembling, Bill's unopened letter clutched in my lap. Whatever he'd written, it held answers, or a death sentence. The next morning, my Brooklyn apartment felt like a crime scene. The shattered window from yesterday's gunshot gaped like a wound, glass still crunching under my boots. I'd taped cardboard over it, but the chill seeped through, matching the ice in my veins. I hadn't slept, my mind replaying the will reading, the brick, the chase. Sterling, Bill's attorney, had warned me I was in danger, but I hadn't expected it to escalate this fast. I tore open Bill's letter, my hands unsteady, hoping for clarity. "My dearest M," it began, his familiar scrawl steady despite his age. "If you're reading this, Sterling's dropped the bombshell, and you're likely overwhelmed, maybe even angry with me. I'm sorry for the burden I've placed on you without warning, but I didn't choose you lightly. For 20 years I tested this family, not for business savvy, but for humanity. Charles, Victoria, Olivia, Ethan, they failed, valuing wealth over compassion. You, M, passed every test without knowing you were taking them. Your exposés, your kindness to strangers, your refusal to bend under their scorn, these are why I trust you with my legacy. In the safe behind my study portrait, use your birthday as the code. My journal there details their betrayals and your virtues. Lead with courage, M. You're not alone. All my love, Bill. Bill. True wealth is staying true to yourself. Never apologize for who you are." Tears blurred the ink. Bill had seen me when no one else did, but he'd also thrust me into a war I wasn't ready for. The journal he mentioned, proof of my family's crimes, could be my shield or my downfall. I needed to get to the Hamptons estate, but the thought of returning with that SUV's driver still out there made my stomach churn. My phone buzzed again. Victoria, her third voicemail since last night. I ignored it, but the onslaught had begun. Charles emailed, threatening to guide me to avoid irreparable damage to the company. Olivia texted, her tone saccharine. This must be so overwhelming. Let me help with the portfolio. Ethan's message was blunt. We need to talk about the Miami condo. Call me. They were circling like vultures, each move calculated to claw back what they'd lost. I called Sarah, my anchor since third grade, when she'd shared her lunch with the shy new kid. Me. Holy crap, Em, she said when I spilled everything, from the will to the chase. You're in a freaking thriller. Are you okay? I laughed, a shaky sound. Define okay. Someone tried to run me off the road last night. Her gasp crackled through the line. You need to get out of that apartment. Come stay with me. I hesitated. Sarah's Williamsburg loft was safer, but I couldn't drag her into this. I'll figure it out, I said. Just don't tell anyone, okay? She sighed. Fine, but you better not die on me, Carter. I packed a bag, laptop, notebook, Bill's letter, and headed to a mechanic I trusted, a grizzled guy named Joe who'd fixed my Toyota's endless ailments. Check the brakes, I said, my voice tight. Something felt off last night. Joe raised an eyebrow but nodded. An hour later, he called me over, his face grim. Your brake lines were cut, Em. Clean slice, not wear. Someone wanted you to crash. My knees buckled. The SUV chase wasn't the first attempt on my life. It was the second. Joe promised to keep it quiet, but I saw the worry in his eyes. Be careful, kid, he said, handing me the keys. I drove to a cheap motel in Queens, paying cash to stay off the grid. Whoever was after me knew where I lived. Maybe even where I'd go next. The motel room smelled of mildew, its flickering fluorescent light casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper. I spread Bill's letter on the bed, rereading it, searching for clues. The journal was my next move, but the estate was a 3-hour drive, and I wasn't sure I'd make it there alive. My phone lit up with an unknown number, a voicemail left while I was with Joe. I played it, my blood running cold. A distorted voice hissed, "Give up the inheritance or your friend Sarah gets hurt." I dropped the phone, panic clawing my chest. Sarah. They knew about her. I called her immediately, my voice shaking. "Sarah, lock your doors. Don't go anywhere." She laughed, confused. "What's wrong, Em? Yes, Em." "Just do it," I snapped, then softened. "Please, I'll explain later." She agreed, her voice uneasy, and I hung up, my mind racing. How did they know about Sarah? Was my phone tapped? My apartment bugged? I needed answers, but first, I needed to survive. I booked a rental car under a fake name, thank you journalism contacts, and drove to the Hamptons at dawn, taking back roads to avoid another tale. The estate loomed like a fortress, its white columns stark against the gray sky. I parked a mile away, approaching on foot through the woods, my heart pounding with every snap of a twig. The side entrance was unlocked, a red flag, but I slipped inside, my sneakers silent on the marble. The study was as Bill left it. Dark wood, leather chairs, his portrait above the fireplace, his blue eyes seeming to follow me. I punched my birthday into the safe's keypad, holding my breath. It clicked open, revealing a leather-bound journal, thick with extra pages tucked inside. I flipped it open, Bill's elegant handwriting filling every page. He had documented 20 years of tests for the family, each entry a dagger. Charles had laundered money through a shell company to cover gambling debts. Victoria had insider traded during a merger, pocketing millions. Olivia had framed a colleague for fraud to secure a promotion. Ethan had evaded taxes on offshore accounts, bribing officials to look the other way. Interspersed were notes about me. Emily mentored a young journalist, staying late to edit her work, expecting nothing in return. Emily helped a homeless source find shelter, using her own money. Emily exposed a corrupt councilman, risking retaliation. Bill had seen it all, his love for me woven into every line. But the final entry stopped me cold. Someone's watching Emily. I suspect they know my plan. Protect her, Sterling. I slammed the journal shut, my pulse racing. Bill had known I was in danger. Had he been targeted too? I stuffed the journal into my bag, but a creak from the hallway froze me. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoed closer. I ducked behind the desk, my breath shallow as the study door eased open. A man's silhouette filled the frame, his face obscured by shadow. He held a flashlight, its beam sweeping the room, lingering on the portrait. "She's been here," he muttered into a phone. "The safe's open." My heart stopped. I recognized the voice. James, Olivia's husband, the hedge fund shark with eyes like a predator. He stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking on the wood, and I pressed myself flatter, praying he wouldn't look down. "He can't have gotten far," he said, his tone cold. "Find her car, check the roads." He paused, listening. "No, Olivia doesn't know. Keep it that way." My mind reeled. James was behind the threats, or was he working for someone else? He left, the door clicking shut, and I waited, counting to 100 before bolting for the side exit. I sprinted through the woods, branches clawing my face, the journal heavy in my bag. My rental car was untouched, but as I peeled out, a black sedan appeared in the distance, gaining fast. Not again. I swerved onto a dirt road, losing them in the dust, but my hands shook so badly I nearly crashed. Back in Queens, I holed up in a new motel, the journal my only companion. I read it cover to cover, each page a revelation. Bill had set traps for the family, testing their compassion, their integrity. Victoria had refused to help Bill's old assistant, a single mom facing eviction, saying, "We can't set a precedent." Charles had fired a loyal manager whose wife needed cancer treatment, citing cost efficiency. Olivia had sabotaged a rival's presentation, stealing her ideas. Ethan had been caught on camera berating a janitor, unaware Bill was watching. And me, Bill wrote of small acts I'd forgotten. Giving my coat to a shivering source, staying anonymous after a big scoop, refusing a bribe from a politician's aide. He'd built a case, not just for me, but against them. My phone buzzed. Sterling. "Emily, are you safe?" His voice was tight. "Your family's planning legal action, claiming undue influence. They're saying Bill was coerced." I laughed bitterly. "They're lying. I have his journal." Sterling exhaled. "Good, but there's more. Someone leaked sensitive company data from your first board meeting. It's all over the news. Wentworth Enterprises is accused of tax evasion." My stomach dropped. I hadn't even attended a board meeting yet. "It's a setup," I said. "Someone's trying to discredit me." Sterling agreed. "Come to my office tomorrow. We need to strategize." I hung up, paranoia creeping in. Who had access to the company? Charles? Olivia? James? That night, my apartment burned. I wasn't there, thank God, but Sarah called, sobbing. "Em, your place. It's gone. Firefighters said it was arson." I felt sick. The gunshot, the brakes, the chase, the kidnapping threat, now this. Whoever was after me was escalating, and they didn't care who got hurt. I checked the news. Tabloids screamed, Wentworth heiress blackmailed patriarch for fortune. Fake documents proved I'd coerced Bill, complete with forged emails. My Twitter was a war zone. Death threats pouring in. You don't deserve it, fraud. Step down or else. I turned off my phone, my chest tight with panic. I needed allies. But who could I trust? I met Sterling in Manhattan, his office a sleek fortress of glass and steel. He looked older, worry etched into his face. Emily, the board's spooked. Charles is pushing for a shareholder vote to oust you. He slid a USB across the desk. Bill left this for you. It's encrypted, but he said you'd know the key. I pocketed it, my mind racing. The journal, now the USB. What else had Bill hidden? Sterling continued. We need to call a family meeting. On your terms. Show them you're in control. I nodded, but dread pooled in my gut. Facing them again, with James's voice echoing in my head, felt like walking into a trap. I rented a laptop. Mine was ash, and tried the USB at a coffee shop, guessing passwords. My birthday, Bill's birthday, nothing worked. Then it hit me. True Wealth 21 from our diner talk. The drive opened, revealing files labeled Charles, Victoria, Olivia, Ethan. I clicked. Charles's, bank records, emails, proof of money laundering. Victoria's held SEC violations. Olivia's showed corporate espionage. Ethan's detailed tax evasion. The final file, Emily, was a video. Bill's face appeared, his voice soft. If you're watching this, things are bad. I've hidden evidence to protect you, but someone's on to me. Trust Sterling, but no one else. There's a second safe at the Manhattan penthouse. The code's your first byline date. It holds the key to ending this. The video cut off, and I sat back, stunned. A second safe? Another key? That night, I broke into the penthouse, my penthouse now technically. The doorman, an old friend of Bill's, let me in, his eyes nervous. Be quick, Miss Carter. Your father's been here. The penthouse was a museum of wealth, every surface gleaming. I found the safe behind a Monet, punching in my first byline date, June 15th, 2015. Inside was a single USB labeled checkmate. I didn't have time to open it. A security alarm blared. Red lights flashed. I bolted, the USB in my pocket, as footsteps thundered up the stairwell. I took the service elevator, my heart in my throat, and escaped into the Manhattan night, a black hoodie hiding my face. The next day, I found a mole. My advisor, a slick exec named Marcus, had been feeding Olivia my plans. I set a trap, leaking fake merger details to him. At the board meeting, when Olivia referenced the merger, I called her out, playing a recording of Marcus's call to her. The boardroom went silent, Marcus's face draining of color. You're fired, I said, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. The board applauded, but Olivia's glare promised war. Later, Charles emailed, announcing a shareholder revolt. I countered with a viral op-ed, using Bill's journal to expose his embezzlement. It hit like a bomb, trending on Twitter. But I knew I'd painted a bigger target on my back. Then Ethan called, his voice raw. I need to see you. We met in Central Park, dusk casting long shadows. He looked wrecked, his usual swagger gone. I hired the guy who cut your brakes, he admitted, tears in his eyes. I thought it'd scare you into stepping down. I didn't know he'd try to kill you. I staggered back, betrayal cutting deep. Why, Ethan? He shook his head. I was desperate Dad said I'd lose everything. He reached for me, but I pulled away. I'm sorry, Em. Let me help you now. I walked away, torn between rage and pity, unsure if I could ever trust him again. The family meeting was my gambit. I chose the Hamptons estate, my estate, the dining room's mahogany table, my stage. I sat at the head, Sterling to my right, 2 security guards at the doors. Victoria and Charles arrived first, their conservative attire a calculated show of authority. Olivia and James followed, her Chanel suit a battle uniform, his eyes avoiding mine. Ethan and Chloe were last, Ethan's gaze pleading, Chloe's phone mercifully off. The silence was suffocating, their eyes boring into me, waiting for me to crack. I spoke first, my voice steady. Bill left me everything. That's a legal fact. How we move forward is up to us, but mostly me, Charles scoffed. You'll ruin the company in a year? I opened the journal, holding it up. Shall I read what Bill thought of you? Your money laundering, Dad? Mom's insider trading? Olivia's espionage? Ethan's bribes? The room went still. Victoria's face paled. How long have you been plotting this? She whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't plot anything, I said. Bill did. He saw what you've become. People who value money over humanity. I played the USV's video, Bill's words echoing, trust Sterling, but no one else. Victoria broke, sobbing into her hands. I was his daughter. Why, you? Her pain was raw, and for the first time, I saw her not as a queen, but as a wounded child. Ethan stood, surprising everyone. I'm with Em. I screwed up, but she's right. Bill wasn't wrong about us. Olivia's mask cracked, tears welling. I thought sabotaging others was what he wanted. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Em. Charles tried to interrupt, but Victoria stopped him. Enough, Charles. We've lost her, and him. The room shifted, the fight draining out of them. I laid out terms. They could stay in their properties, but I was in charge. No negotiations. 3 months later, I stood in Bill's old office at Wentworth Enterprises, now mine. The dark wood was gone, replaced with open glass, local art on the walls. I'd transformed the company. Fair wages, green initiatives, a journalism foundation, funding truth tellers. The board was loyal, the numbers strong. Bill's secret novels, found in a hidden vault, were published posthumously, their proceeds funding scholarships. At the Wentworth Foundation Gala, I displayed his work beside my exposés, a tribute to our shared passion. Victoria tried to undermine me, but I played Bill's video, silencing her. Ethan became my ally, Olivia sought therapy, and my parents kept their distance, humbled. The second USV checkmate held Bill's final gift, evidence to dismantle a corporate conspiracy tied to my family's rivals. I used it, exposing them, solidifying my power. Standing before Bill's portrait, I felt peace. I'd redefined the Wentworth legacy, proving wealth without compassion is poverty. The threats hadn't stopped, but I was ready. This was my empire now, and I'd fight for it. What's your take on this war for power? Ever faced a family betrayal that changed everything? Share below, and if this saga of danger and redemption gripped you, hit like and subscribe. The Wentworth Empire is mine, but the battle's just begun.